Well, Eric, the impeachment inquiry marks a big gamble for House Democrats as they head into the high-stakes 2020 election. But Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she's not concerned if the party loses its majority in the House over it.
Heading into the next election cycle, do you have any anxiety at all about any of the stuff we're talking about or anything that we're not talking about impacting your ability to hold control of the House in 2020?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Our first responsibility is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Joining us now is California Democratic Congressman Harley Rouda, member of the House Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, are you 100% sure that impeachment inquiry is the way to go and that now is the time to do it?
I am. I came out for an impeachment inquiry about 2 or 3 months ago. And I saw firsthand on the Oversight Committee this president and this administration stonewalling every constitutional attempt to produce documents and witnesses to do appropriate investigations, to the point where Kellyanne Conway said at one point to the effect that, let me know when they come to take me away in handcuffs. That's not how America works.
When critics say Democrats are all over the place, they're just looking for any reason to impeach the president, what do you tell them? What is your party's concise reason for this impeachment inquiry?
What we have seen in the last week should shock every American, where a president of the United States is using the power of the office to influence a foreign leader, to dig up dirt on a political opponent, to enhance his reelection opportunities, and also doing this at the expense of our continued support of Ukraine and its efforts to fight Russia. This is beyond the pale, and I believe if every American reads that transcript, the memorandum of the phone conversation coupled with the whistleblower's report, you can come to no other conclusion if you have an iota of gray matter between your ears.
So, Congressman, is the purpose of this inquiry to gain subpoena power, to obtain documents, secure depositions, get the complete unredacted transcript of the July 25th phone call between Presidents Zelensky and Trump that you just mentioned? And breaking news this morning, Intel Committee Chair Adam Schiff is saying that they will interview the actual whistleblower. Is that the purpose, or is impeachment the ultimate goal?
Well, the purpose is to be able to get the documents and information and evidence that the American people deserve to see. And as we have seen in more and more news reports, the server from the Situation Room, which is supposed to house information regarding the memorandums on these phone calls, many of them were being transferred over to a highly classified server as well.
And you know the president says he did that. Excuse me, Congressman. You know the president says he did that because there were too many leakers in the White House. So he felt the need to secure all of these conversations with foreign leaders.
Well, we have a president who's also calling this whistleblower, who did everything by the book, a potential spy, and we also saw what he suggested should happen to spies. And this is completely unethical and immoral for our president to be doing this.
Where could you go wrong? I mean, for instance, if your investigations become too broad, does that play into the president's claim that this is a witch hunt? Do Democratic lawmakers, you believe, have the discipline to control the scope of the impeachment inquiry?
Based on the conversations that we are having with leadership, I'm very confident that Speaker Pelosi and the committee chairs are going to stay very, very focused on the primary issue of what has transpired with the Ukrainian government, as well as the cover-up. If other items come in, they will take a secondary stance to, I think, again, that Ukrainian situation.
I'm sure you're well aware that the nation is practically split on the idea of impeaching President Trump. You've got 49% approve, 46% disapprove, which is according to an NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll. So if you think impeaching President Trump would harm his reelection chances, should you consider the chances of the exact opposite effect?
Well, two things on that. First, to me, this isn't a political question. I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States, as did the president. And we have an obligation to honor that oath on behalf of all Americans. And I believe we have an obligation to do the impeachment inquiry for that reason alone. Second, if you go back in history and look at when the impeachment proceedings were started against Nixon, you'll see that he actually had an approval rating north of 50%, and less than 1/3 of Americans supported impeachment. But as the evidence came out, as the facts came out, it was clear that we had a president who violated his oath to the Constitution. And I believe, as we do this investigation, Americans will see exactly what this president has been up to and will hold him accountable for violating his oath to the Constitution.
The president and his supporters will blame Democrats for creating a political circus and further dividing a heavily divided country. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, we have to look at what is being done in Congress. Congress to date has passed over approximately 300 bills. Vast majority of them bipartisan, yet only 15% of them have been passed by the Senate. So when we talk about what is preventing the work of Congress impacting our country and our communities, it clearly sits at the feet of Mitch McConnell. And to put this in perspective, in the previous 113th, I'm sorry?
You said it clearly sits at the feet of Mitch McConnell. How so?
The fact that he has only brought bills to the floor of the Senate such that only 15% of the bills that have passed the House have passed the Senate, yet the vast majority of the bills passing the House have been bipartisan. Let's talk about background checks. 90+% of Americans want background checks. Why has Mitch McConnell not put that on the floor of the Senate to be voted on?
Okay, so considering what you're just highlighting here, and I'm running out of time, but you point out some things that that really are concerning to the American public. With this impeachment inquiry consuming all the oxygen there in D.C. and in the country, I mean, can work really get done in the midst of all of this?
Well, that's my point. It can be done, and it is being done. And we can do multiple things, including the investigation of violations of the Constitution by the President of the United States, as well as pass legislation affecting our communities and our country. But we need a partner in the Senate, and that means Mitch McConnell needs to put on the floor of the Senate legislation that has passed the House in a bipartisan fashion. And
you would be counting on Mitch McConnell, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, to call a trial to sanction your impeachment if it gets to that. We will see. Congressman Harley Rouda, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.